certainly a lot of this is antagonized by you know, practical issues of territory, issues of economics. We have an unstable economic substrate. And now a lot of people would say, see, that's the whole cause. No, that's not what I'm getting at. I'm not saying that's the whole cause. What I'm saying is, I think what you see is a mix of those practical things bubbling up on top of a foundation, which is a sort of fundamental antipathy or incoherence between the two presupposed holy worldviews.
Mm.
And so if you have practical superficial things come to a head and then that those underlying tectonics are incompatible, which they are often, then you're going to see it you know, catalyzed to a much higher degree. So it's not just that you're going to have the conflict of the practical thing of us wanting more space or this historical or this thing, but you're going to have that mixed in with a fundamental disagreement that can't be merged.
Mm.
Right? If one person's position is A and the other one's is not A, there's not a middle ground, right? That's they'd call them logic the principle of excluded middle.
Mm-hmm.
That when you have those clear cut A, not A, then they're not going to merge. And we have a lot more of that going on in our world than people want to think or that people are maybe even aware of. I think a lot of people are in that, you know, neo-Buddhist, Judeo-Buddhist type of worldview that is like, you know, it all, you know, the sort of perennialist, Helena Blavatsky theosophy, like, you know, no, it's all like this perennial mush
Mhm.
of just everyone's getting at the same thing. You know what I mean? Everyone's will is perfect. We all want the perfect coherence and
Human beings
peace.
are generally good.
Yeah, yeah, and because we all want that peace, it all merges into us just saying the same thing but with different words, and that's just evidently not the case. And history shows that's evidently not the case,
Right.
and the future will continue to show that that's evidently not the case. People fix their wills on things that are contrary to other things.
My question to you
Yeah,
along that vein is, I made the point yesterday on the podcast, which is probably greatly controversial in the conservative movement, that um, what it looked like to me. Let's set
yeah,
the fundamental differences between Islam and Christianity
yeah,
aside for the moment,
yeah, yeah,
not in the final analysis, of course, but for the moment. And let's assume that the geopolitical super elite, cultural elite, managerial, scientific elite don't give a shit about our faith practice at all.
right.
Either one,
Which they probably don't.
which they clearly don't.
Most
Sure, they're
evidently
evidently,
don't.
yeah. I mean, kind of out there in the open.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
they're really sort of saying that if you believe in God, then you're crazy. You're a conspiracy theorist, and you're probably on the road to becoming a domestic terrorist of some variety. That was actually
Yeah,
pretty much laid out in Joe Biden's National Council for Domestic Terrorism Security Report in 2021. But
right.
um, what it seemed like to me is the Palestinians are a relic of a old geopolitical framework, and the entire global sort of system, let's say, came together and decided you're out. Or let's say that the Palestinians saw that the Iranians may be making a deal with China and Russia to be a part of a future global structure, a geopolitical structure that didn't include them after they had, in their view, held the line against Israel and the West for so long, contemporaneously as the Palestinian Authority was. There's the PLA, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
In Gaza, so one or two things may have happened. Either Hamas decided we're going to preemptively go to pull everybody higher on the totem pole into the deal, or the Iranians sent the order down. I mean, that's kind of what's believed, which is crazy. And you get into some wild conspiracy theories where, I mean, ipso facto, we send money to China, China sends money to Iran, we send $6 billion to Iran. If Iran's really giving the orders, who's to say that we're not giving the orders? And I say we, I mean these global elites that profit from war. But when it all shakes out, obviously Iran's in a vulnerable position, really vulnerable position, because they're not the big dog in any yard. I mean, they're kind of under the wing of that China-Russia alliance, and then they certainly don't want all-out open combat with America, in my opinion. Not that we should want a war, a long kinetic war with them, but I do think that we still have a superior advantage in naval power and air superiority. So it'd be devastating for them if we decided to go to all-out war. But my point in all of it is saying when all the smoke is cleared and the dust settles, it still looks like Iran is getting clipped out, not because they're extremists, but because they are the most radical faith practitioners
Mm.
on
Oh,
the
okay.
world
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
stage. And all of us here at home, us Christians here in America who live safe in comfort and luxury in this sort of watered down churchianity version of Christianity, which is greatly distributed by the Protestant, the
Any number
Protestant.
of things, a lot of things,
Yeah,
all of the hands. But yes, yes.
but we're a Protestant country.
Yep.
Um, we kind of look at Iran like, oh, we gotta watch those Muslims. I mean, those Muslims could really do a number on us, and they could. But if they're the strongest vanguard of faith practitioners out there in the world, in terms of, hey, we believe in this, we're willing to fight and die for it. If they get clipped out, who are they obviously going to come for next? That's my fear. What are you? Is that what you were saying when you said that the more radical forms of Islam in the Middle East kind of want the contemplative at the middle of their community and life?
Well, yeah, I mean, we'd put the word radical on it, but devout might be a more healthy, framing of it, that anyone who's devout in their faith wants their faith at the center of their life,
Hmm.
and they believe that it should be at the center of their life. Probably even more than that, whether they want it or not, whether they want to get into the discipline or not, they believe that it should be, that they have a sort of obligation to it. So no, I like that. I mean, I think that's actually quite a profound take, and I haven't been listening to much stuff, but the idea that Iran is kind of the biggest, sort of on the global scale, the biggest nation that really has that sort of faith as central to its whole ordering of life, and there's a motive to take that out. I mean, I think it would align with a lot of other things. It would seem to be more than coincidental for that to line up. But I mean, I was just thinking back. This is again taking you down a different path, but it's like
Yeah,
what kind of powder keg was Europe putting there in 1947 when they were like, let's go plant
in Israel.
Israel. Let's go
Yeah,
plant these people, Jewish people, in this territory right now. I mean, you talk about
it was
this
certainly
is
not a favor to the
this
Jewish people. It
well,
seemed it seems almost hateful,
right, and this coincides with
which would match up with what had just happened.
the famous speeches around the military industrial complex, JFK taking that to the next level, really emphasizing it, where it's like, I mean, at this point, people know between banking and military that perpetual conflict, even if you're not even if you're not the proximate cause of whatever the immediate conflict is, you know that if you just, I mean, this is like what reality TV show producers do.
Right.
They don't know that people are going to create conflict between themselves. They don't know it, but they know if they take a person with borderline personality disorder, and a person with narcissistic personality disorder, and a person with codependent personality disorder, and the person with, I mean, that's why they have psychologists who do the screenings
Hmm.
for these reality TV shows. They know if they put that all in a room, something's going down,
Hmm.
and we just got to watch and see what it is.
Keep the cameras rolling.
Yeah, yeah, and this, I mean, to go drop Israel right in there, and the Jewish people right in there, they know even if they flush out Palestine, all of Palestine's boys aren't going to just let that rest.
Hmm.
And as we, see in the Bible, the Lord takes vengeance upon the fourth generation. Well, we know that in sort of a natural perspective, that if you have a death of a child, you've radicalized that whole family for 4 generations. We know that this is the way conflict works. America has this coming to the head right now.
Right.
You look at, the choice of America to subject a whole race of peoples to slavery that wasn't even like a next door race. What people have always subjected, the Irish, the British, they've always tried to subject each other to
Hmm.
slavery. But to go all the way across the globe, somewhere totally different, take them, commandeer them, and subject them to racism. Come on, man. You're going to have animosity for 10 generations.
Right.
and we have that. And, you know what I mean? It's like
And a kind of blind, almost hard to describe animosity that has to go back to
yeah,
a deeper psychological root.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
Well, and the psychological root is that those types of tragedies, those types of offenses stick with people. They inflame, especially in our fallen nature where our pride is run amok.
Genetic or oral? Do you think that the
I would say, I mean, I guess I'd go a level deeper and say spiritual in the sense
okay,
that
yeah, yeah,
the trauma. I mean, this is what they talk about. This is what people, even modern times, they talk about the trauma that people live with today. And philosophers have well pointed out. Thomas Sowell does it. How if you look at the time right after slavery, there was much more relative peace in a lot of areas. There was a much more relative sort of contentment,
mm,
coexistence in a lot of areas. Well, you can think of that easily. It's like, oh, we have a relief from the tragedy that we just had. Okay, we feel the sort of catharsis and we're good. That doesn't mean second, third, fourth, fifth generation
you're gonna see it that
is going to
way.
have the exact
Yeah,
same catharsis.
right.
You give them a little bit of time, they're going to wheel back and look at that differently.
Mhm.
And so that's where even if you go to the 1950s, 60s, civil rights movement right after that, right? And now you come to today, you're like, it's ramped up.
It is.
It's way ramped up. And people will go, "Well, see, that's not logical." And you go, "Dude, that's how sin works." And by, in this case, that's the sin. Now, the real question is, well, how do we resolve it? Dude, you and I can't. Right? By the way, the only one who can heal sin is God. The only one. And that's there in the Old Testament, Jewish faith. They knew it. No one but God can heal sin itself. That's what's so radical when Jesus comes on and says, your sins are forgiven to people.
Mhm.
He goes, I will it. Be clean. Your sins are forgiven. Go and sin no more. They're like, who is this that can take away sins? Only God can take away sins. So we need the divine assistance or grace in order to even begin to heal any wounds. And what are we doing? We're boxing out God,
Mhm.
which by the way, the only thing that blocks grace is an impediment to grace in the will of the person who would receive it. God desires to give it to all, but it's an impediment by our choices. So what do we have? We have this boxing out. And that's where, like I said, I think there's a lot of layers of profundity to that notion that let's now box out Iran for the sheer idea that at least if yes, you'll have decentralized splinters of faith everywhere, but if it's not localized, if it's not operational and active as a sort of principle for a people, for a nation, then maybe now we can have that setup that it's like the producers in the reality show. Just keep the cameras rolling. We got the banks, we got the militaries, we got the production out, the manufacturing, the different things like so we'll just let it roll and for the most part, um, we can, just know that it's gonna go well
Well,
one way or
well,
another for those people in their pockets.